Today, we have an amazing round of 55 random facts that will blow your mind. Crater Lake boasts the title of the deepest lake in the U.S. at 1,943 feet, taller than One World Trade Center. All its water comes from rain and snow, with no rivers feeding this freshwater wonder. If you read a 100,000-word novel, about 300 pages, your eyes will travel almost a full kilometer or more than half a mile across the pages. More mouse embryos start out female, but during pregnancy, some are lost, so more males are actually born. Diet also matters. High-fat diets produce more male pups, while high-carb, low-fat diets favor females. Echinoderms, like sea stars, brittle stars, sea cucumbers, and sea urchins, are unusual creatures with no blood and an internal skeleton. They all have radial symmetry, and their arms are covered with tiny tube feet. These feet use water pressure to move, cling to surfaces, and even help capture prey, making echinoderms perfectly adapted to life in the ocean. A mushroom known as the lady in the veil from Africa is one of the fastest growing organisms on Earth, shooting up 20 centimeters or 8 inches in just 20 minutes. You can even hear it cracking as it pushes its way into the world. The word hurricane comes from Huracan, the storm god worshipped by the Taíno people of the Caribbean. The Maya also had a fierce god by the same name, tied to wind and chaos. Less than 0.1 grams of toxin from a pufferfish, about 0.04 of an ounce, can kill an adult human. During a stable belly-to-earth freefall, skydivers typically reach around 190 kilometers per hour, or 120 miles per hour. This speed comes from gravity pulling them toward Earth and is later reduced by air resistance. Hyenas have an extraordinary ability to survive rabies. While most animals succumb to the deadly virus, some hyenas can become asymptomatic carriers. They can be infected and even pass on the virus, all without showing any of the fatal symptoms. An earthworm tastes with its whole body, using chemoreceptors all over its skin to sniff out food and avoid danger. Also, that thick ring you see on an earthworm is called the clitellum. It only shows up once the worm is mature, and its job is to make the cocoon where eggs get fertilized and grow before hatching. The only fruit an aardvark eats is the aardvark cucumber, a strange underground fruit that relies on the animal to dig it up and spread its seeds. Avalanches can unleash their fury in seconds, racing down slopes at speeds over 130 kilometers per hour, or about 80 miles per hour. In extreme cases, they've been clocked at more than 200 miles per hour. Mauna Loa is the planet's largest single mountain, with a colossal volume of nearly 19,000 cubic miles. A peanut isn't really a nut at all. It's a legume. What's wild is their unique way of growing. After pollination, the flower stalk bends, and a structure called a peg pushes the fertilized ovary into the soil, where the peanut pod develops underground. The Great Smoky Mountains are incredibly rich in biodiversity, especially amphibians, with over 30 species of salamanders, and some are endemic. The region's moist, temperate forests and abundant streams create perfect habitats for these amphibians, supporting their high diversity. Also, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the most visited park in the U.S., drawing over 12 million people every year. Back in 1900, about a third of all vehicles on the road were electric, quietly zipping around cities long before gasoline cars took over. Dogs first broke away from wolves thanks to random genetic mutations that let some wolves digest starch and fat more easily. These adaptable wolves started trailing nomadic humans for leftovers, and over thousands of years, that survival trick turned them into the first dogs. Supermarket tomatoes may look perfect, but there's a catch. A mutation in the SLGLK2 gene makes them ripen into that uniform red we all recognize, but it also strips away sugars and aroma. In other words, breeders accidentally swapped flavor for looks, leaving us with those famously bland tomatoes. Crossing 1 million hours of life isn't easy. In fact, you'd need to live over 114 years to make it. The saguaro cactus can live for up to 200 years and tower nearly 18 meters or 59 feet. When fully soaked, it can store as much as 8 tons of water. enough to survive long desert droughts. Bonus fact, they don't grow arms until they're around 50 to 70 years old, so those iconic cacti can start life looking like a simple column before sprouting the classic arms. A typical raindrop drifts down at about 11 kilometers per hour or 7 miles per hour, but bigger drops can race even faster, hitting nearly 30 kilometers per hour or 20 miles per hour. At any given moment, just 0.1% of Earth's water is floating in clouds or falling as rain, a tiny fraction of the planet's vast water supply. The most distant black hole ever found lies over 13 billion light-years from Earth. It formed when the universe was less than 1 billion years old, and it packs a mass nearly 800 million times greater than our Sun. Orchid seeds are incredibly tiny, so light that more than 1 million of them together weigh just 1 gram or 0.035 ounces. They are among the lightest seeds in the plant kingdom. A sperm whale can plunge 2 kilometers or 125 miles beneath the ocean's surface, and some have been recorded diving nearly 3 kilometers, holding their breath for up to 90 minutes. A baby blue whale guzzles about 227 liters of milk, 50 gallons, every single day, and it packs on nearly 91 kilograms or 200 pounds daily as it grows. A pigeon's bones are so light that its feathers actually outweigh its entire skeleton. This adaptation reduces body weight while keeping the bird sturdy enough to handle the powerful wing muscles needed for flight. A polar bear's stomach can hold up to 20% of its body weight, meaning one meal can top 70 kilograms or 150 pounds of meat. A typical lightning bolt is only about 2 to 5 centimeters, around an inch, wide, though it can appear much wider because of the intense brightness. As for length, bolts usually stretch a few kilometers, but some can be much longer. In fact, the record is a bolt over 700 kilometers, 435 miles long, recorded in 2020. Every person spends about half an hour of their life as a single cell, right at the very start of their mother's pregnancy. The placenta, the organ that nourishes a baby in the womb, uses the same biological tricks as a parasitic worm to hide from the mother's immune system. It produces proteins and molecules that suppress the mother's immune system. Without it, the body would treat the baby like an intruder. The single most widespread mammal on the planet, after humans, is the house mouse, found on every continent except Antarctica. Their success comes from adaptability. Rodents can survive almost anywhere, reproduce quickly, and eat a wide variety of foods. The skin on your eyelid is the thinnest on your body, just 0.5 millimeter thick, about the width of a single hair. On the moon, daytime temperatures can climb past 127 Celsius degrees, about 260 degrees Fahrenheit, but when night takes over, it crashes to nearly minus 173 Celsius degrees, or minus 280 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a swing of almost 300 Celsius degrees, or 540 degrees Fahrenheit, between day and night. On average, a person falls asleep in just 7 minutes once they lie down. A hippopotamus has skin so tough it's 3.5 centimeters thick, about 1.5 inches of natural armor, protecting them from predators and fights with other hippos. The placenta, the organ that nourishes a baby in the womb, uses the same biological tricks as a parasitic worm to hide from the mother's immune system. It produces proteins and molecules that suppress the mother's immune system. Without it, the body would treat the baby like an intruder. Avocados may be a superfood for us, but for many animals, they're poisonous. Birds, horses, and even cows can't handle a natural toxin in them called persin. Humans, though, are immune, so guacamole stays on the menu. True ambidexterity means being able to use your left and right hands with equal skill, whether that's writing, throwing a ball, or handling tools. It's incredibly rare, showing up in only about 1% of the global population, or roughly 82 million people. A 2019 study even suggested that most so-called ambidextrous people actually favor one hand more than they realize, making genuine ambidexterity one of the rarest human traits. Malaria, spread by mosquitoes, has been one of humanity's deadliest diseases. responsible for roughly half of all deaths from illness since the Stone Age. Mars days are called sols, and each one is roughly 24 hours and 39 minutes, about 40 minutes longer than a day on Earth. Rainforests cover just 2% of Earth's surface, yet they're bursting with life, home to more than half of all plant and animal species. About 74% of the universe is hydrogen, 24% is helium, and the remaining 2% is everything else: oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, and all the other elements. The Milky Way's supermassive black hole is called Sagittarius A, tipping the scales at around 4 million times the mass of our Sun. Asparagus may be a superstar on the dinner plate, packed with vitamins and fiber, but it also comes with a quirky side effect: smelly urine. The culprit is a compound unique to asparagus called asparagusic acid. Once your body digests it, the acid breaks down into sulfur byproducts, and those rise up in your urine surprisingly fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes after eating. But here's the twist: not everyone can smell it. That's because the ability to detect this odor actually depends on genetics. A study in 2016 found that about 60% of people couldn't pick up the scent at all. So if you're one of the lucky ones who never notices anything strange, it's not that your body isn't making it, it's just your nose that doesn't register the smell. And for those who do, don't worry, it's completely natural. A light year is the distance light travels in a year, roughly 5.88 trillion miles or 9.5 trillion kilometers. One astronomical unit, or AU, is the average distance from Earth to the Sun, roughly 93 million miles or 149.6 million kilometers. Starfish are everywhere in the oceans. With over 2,800 species, they inhabit nearly every corner of the sea, from shallow tide pools on beaches to deep ocean floors, showcasing incredible adaptability and resilience. Spiders belong to the arachnid family, which includes about 112,000 species, from scorpions to ticks, all built for survival in a huge range of habitats. Almost any food can trigger an allergy, but 9 foods, the big 9, cause roughly 90% of all cases: milk, soy, eggs, wheat, peanuts, tree nuts, sesame, fish, and shellfish. Here's a sobering fact: less than 1% of all the water on Earth is fresh and accessible for us to drink. That figure even includes the water floating around in the atmosphere. The rest? It's either salty, frozen solid, or buried too deep to reach. Australia is more than twice the size of India, but here's the kicker: its population is less than 2% of India's. A eukaryote is a cell with a membrane-bound nucleus. All animals, plants, and fungi belong to this group, setting them apart from simpler cells like bacteria. When a flower is pollinated, it produces seeds, but plants don't just drop them on the ground. Many wrap their seeds in tasty, nutritious fruit to attract animals. We eat the fruit, carry the seeds away, and often deposit them with a natural dose of fertilizer. Over time, plants that made better-tasting fruits spread more successfully. Some fruits even ripen only when the seeds are ready, or stay poisonous to the wrong animals. It's a win-win. Animals get food, plants get their seeds spread. Scientists call this mutualism. More people are allergic to cow's milk than any other food or drink, often reacting to the proteins it contains. That's all for today's facts. Keep watching, the surprises never stop.